This is Dr. Ken Long from Delro. A quick discussion on f103 alpha. This is a mind map PE. An officer was concerned that didn't see the connection between a capability of needing adaptive leaders to the organizational domain of .mil PF. And so this is the line of reasoning in force management that gets you there. So if we say what we need is adaptive leaders because the OE is complex, we might say that adaptive leadership is not a direct organizational requirement. But if we look at adaptive leaders as a means to an end, we'll see that what we really want are not adaptive leaders as an end state, but because they are part of an effective dominant mission control system, which could consist of having sensors, staff to work on the information that the sensors gather, a process by which the staff can generate knowledge, wisdom, and orders, communication network to link things together, along with these adaptive leaders so that we have mission command in action. And then some of the components of this mission command system might need to be adjusted, and that would have organizational implications. So if we look at how we state or restate the requirement and capability, we may come to realize that adaptive leadership is necessary but not sufficient part of a mission command system. And so there are at least two forms of organizational solutions that this might take. The first one is the idea of needing a TDA solution for the generating force. If we say that the generating force's mission is to produce these adaptive leaders, we could see how we might need to adjust or create an organization inside the generating force that would reliably provide adaptive leaders. The idea being that if you take a bunch of leaders and you have a school and or a training center that applies a treatment, you produce adaptive leaders who then can be assigned to units. While they're in units, they can be supported by these schools and training centers. So the organizational solution that we want, the capability that's required to satisfy the requirement, would be these schools or training centers, so that we could then go through a process to develop a requirements document, which would certainly include having a technical specification on what an adaptive leader is, what he can do, how we would know if we had one, so that we could judge whether or not the schools were producing one. And then we would ask, how can we reliably produce? And through the answering of those questions, we might come up with a TDA for the design and implementation of a specific TDA organization solution. The second organizational impact model is where if we were looking at a tactical solution and we want to improve our mission command process. So if we take a look down here at a concept diagram for mission command, we might see that we need a combination of adaptive leaders who can work with reconnaissance assets, either sensors or units or both, or information feeds, a staff that can organize and pull material together, effective problem-solving processes like the Army Design Methodology, MDMP, troop leading procedures built on a basis of critical and creative thinking, and then a communication network to tie all this stuff together with subordinate units that have to implement inside an environment of trust and communication. We might describe that in some way as an effective mission command system. And so we would assess our capability currently. We might take requirements to do this minus our current capabilities and identify a shortfall, and that's the gap that we're trying to fill with our capability. So we might assess our current state against that desired requirements document, and then we might design, test, and compete alternative solutions for how to improve the overall mission command process. Do we need to add recon or add staff or improve doctrinal processes or change communications packages or improve our leadership, or all things taken together in some measure or combination? We might propose a bunch of alternatives and analyze them to come up with a solution. And then we might use our best solution and have it compete for resources against all the other good ideas that are out there for other capabilities that the Army has identified as a requirement, but which we haven't resourced. We would do that in the total Army analysis process. So what I hope to show here is that even those capabilities that don't seem directly connected to organizations or the organizational domain inside .mlpf, in fact, there are usually organizational implications for either how we field that capability in tactical units or how we produce it inside the generating force. If we go to this, go back to the tactical processes, the organizational models processes. In the first case, we'd be designing the model of a unit using perhaps the force design update process and the unit reference sheet, where we're designing basically the wave top level of what that organizational capability might look like with the key units and maybe major pieces of equipment. If it were approved through an FDU and allowed to compete for resources, we would have generated a requirement, a wartime requirement, and then that could be documented inside a TO&E by the Force Management Support Agency, which then becomes the blueprint for how that type of a unit would be organized. And then after it competes in total Army analysis, we might decide to actually fund some of those organizations, and then those authorizations would be further documented into a modified TO&E at the UIC level for particular units, fielding them at a particular point in time. So that's how we make that connection between adaptive leaders and the capability that's desired of effective dominant mission command, and looking at it through the organizational domain in the .mlpf lens. So if you have any questions, come on, see me. This is Dr. Long in Delro. Thanks for your kind attention.